the road that never finishes. There is a highway stretching for hundreds of kilometers across a silent, empty landscape. No warning signs, no damaged pavement, no visible danger. The road looks ordinary in every way, yet no one has ever reached its end. Drivers enter expecting a routine journey. The engine hums steadily. The sky remains clear. The GPS confirms constant forward motion. Mile after mile, the numbers change exactly as they should. According to every instrument, every satellite, every digital map, the vehicle is moving forward without interruption. But something feels wrong. Hours pass, yet the surroundings never truly change. The same distant hills appear again and again. The same faded road markings reemerge. The same lonely sign stands waiting in the distance, as if it has been copied and pasted into the world. Time continues to move forward, but space seems trapped in place. Some drivers describe a creeping sense of detachment, as if reality itself is slowly losing its texture. Others feel an unnatural calm, a quiet surrender to the endless motion. The destination remains fixed on the screen, but it never draws closer. The promise of arrival becomes an illusion. There are no accidents on this road, no mechanical failures, no missing persons reports, just countless unfinished journeys silently accumulating without explanation. Every GPS insists you are progressing. Every measurement confirms distance is being covered. Logic says you are approaching something. Reality says you are not. This highway does not trap you with walls or barriers. It traps you with continuity, an unbroken forward movement that leads nowhere. A road that allows motion but denies arrival. A journey that consumes time without delivering an ending. And once you enter, the most unsettling question is no longer where the road leads, but whether it ever intended to lead anywhere at all. The first reports. The first reports did not appear in newspapers or official traffic records. They surfaced quietly, buried deep inside online forums where long-distance drivers exchanged routine stories about fuel efficiency, weather conditions, and overnight routes. At first, the posts seemed harmless, vague complaints about strange repetition, odd timing, or a stretch of road that felt longer than it should. One driver wrote that after nearly 5 hours of continuous driving, he noticed a familiar billboard ahead. It advertised a closed roadside diner, its paint peeling, the same crooked letter hanging loosely from the frame. He remembered passing it earlier in the day, but dismissed the thought as fatigue. Long drives distort memory. The brain fills gaps. Nothing unusual. An hour later, the same billboard appeared again. Another driver reported passing the same damaged guardrail 3 times within a single afternoon, each time at roughly the same distance marker. A delivery contractor uploaded dashcam footage showing identical cracks in the asphalt, identical oil stains, even the same small pile of gravel resting near the shoulder. The timestamps progressed normally. The vehicle's speed remained steady. There were no visible turns or loops in the road. At first, moderators assumed the footage had been edited or mistakenly duplicated. But more clips followed. Different vehicles, different weather conditions, different drivers who had never met, all capturing the same repeating details along the same highway. The pattern became difficult to ignore. As the posts accumulated, a strange consistency emerged. Drivers did not report sudden disorientation or equipment failure. Their engines performed normally. Fuel consumption matched the expected distance traveled. GPS coordinates continued to update in real time, showing smooth, uninterrupted forward movement. Satellite maps confirmed the highway extended far beyond the reported locations. Yet visually, the environment refused to advance. Several drivers attempted to rationalize the phenomenon. Some blamed monotonous scenery causing memory overlap, a known psychological effect during extended highway driving. Others suspected temporary GPS synchronization errors or outdated map data. A few argued that the mind, under sensory deprivation, begins creating false familiarity. But these explanations weakened as the evidence grew more detailed. One logistics company quietly launched an internal review after multiple drivers submitted identical complaints about the same route. Their vehicles were equipped with independent tracking systems separate from commercial GPS units. The data showed continuous mileage accumulation, consistent fuel usage, and no signs of route deviation. According to the metrics, the trucks were moving forward exactly as planned. Yet the drivers all reported seeing the same roadside structures repeating in the same sequence. One driver became so unsettled that he pulled over and placed a personal marker, a bright emergency triangle, on the shoulder near a faded signpost. 2 hours later, still driving forward without any visible turns, he encountered the same signpost again. The emergency triangle remained exactly where he had left it. The marker had not moved. The road had not changed. Only the odometer had. This incident triggered wider attention within the community. Amateur investigators began compiling footage, mapping visual landmarks, and comparing timestamps across multiple recordings. When layered side by side, the similarities were impossible to dismiss as coincidence. The same shadows stretched across the pavement. The same cloud formations drifted past distant hills. Even minor imperfections in road paint matched frame for frame. It was as if a segment of reality had been copied and stitched into a continuous loop, seamless, invisible, and perfectly convincing to every instrument except human perception. Strangely, official transportation authorities reported no anomalies. Traffic cameras showed nothing unusual, no missing vehicles, no abnormal congestion, no accident reports. From an administrative perspective, the highway functioned perfectly, which raised an even more troubling question. If the system believed everything was normal and the machines agreed, then where exactly was the error occurring? In the road itself? In the instruments measuring it? Or in the human mind interpreting it? Some drivers quietly admitted they stopped talking about their experiences after repeated skepticism. Others continued returning to the highway, compelled to test it again, convinced they could find the moment where reality broke. A few claimed the repetition became easier to ignore over time, fading into background noise, like a song looping in a distant room. But no one reported reaching the end. No exit signs ever appeared. No terminal point emerged. No final landmark marked completion. Only the same road unfolding endlessly forward, repeating without explanation. And the more evidence accumulated, the harder it became to deny that this was not merely a strange stretch of asphalt, but the first visible crack in something far larger and far less understood. Testing the highway. Once the reports reached a critical mass, curiosity transformed into intent. What had begun as scattered anecdotes now demanded verification. Independent researchers, urban explorers, and a handful of skeptical engineers organized informal field tests. Their goal was simple: determine whether the highway was truly repeating or whether human perception was misleading them. The first team approached the experiment methodically. 2 vehicles entered the highway simultaneously, separated by several kilometers, each equipped with multiple navigation systems, commercial GPS units, offline maps, analog compasses, mechanical odometers, and independent satellite trackers. Dash cameras recorded continuously, capturing both the road and the instrument panels. For the first 3 hours, everything appeared normal. The vehicles maintained steady speed, coordinates updated smoothly, fuel consumption matched expected usage, radio communication remained clear. Then the first anomaly appeared. One driver recognized a narrow bridge ahead, a bridge he distinctly remembered crossing earlier. The paint pattern on the guardrails was identical. A small dent on the right side matched his memory precisely. When the second vehicle reached the same structure 40 minutes later, the dashcam footage revealed the same details in the same configuration. Yet their GPS logs showed uninterrupted forward progress. The team extended the drive for another 6 hours. The same sequence of landmarks continued repeating at consistent intervals. No visible intersections, no side roads, no changes in terrain. Despite accumulating hundreds of kilometers on the odometer, the visual environment remained trapped inside a finite loop. To eliminate the possibility of synchronized device failure, a second group conducted an independent test days later using entirely different equipment brands and satellite providers. Their results mirrored the first team's findings almost exactly. Forward motion was real. Visual progression was not. The third experiment attempted something more radical, A live streaming crew mounted high-resolution cameras on the vehicle's exterior and interior while broadcasting continuously to multiple platforms. Thousands of viewers watched in real time as the highway unfolded and then began repeating. Viewers independently identified matching landmarks before the driver even commented on them. The repetition was no longer subjective, it was observable. Even more unsettling were the physiological and psychological effects reported by the participants. After several hours on the highway, many described a subtle distortion of time perception. Minutes felt elongated. Conversations slowed naturally. The sense of urgency dissolved, replaced by an almost meditative calm. Heart rate monitors showed mild reductions in stress indicators rather than increases. Instead of panic, drivers experienced emotional flattening, a quiet acceptance of the endless drive. One participant described the sensation as being gently anesthetized by motion. Another reported losing the desire to check the destination entirely. It was as if the road itself encouraged surrender. Researchers attempted controlled interventions. They introduced sudden auditory stimuli, abrupt speed changes, and manual navigation overrides. None disrupted the repeating environment. Even deliberate lane changes and sudden braking produced no variation in the sequence of landmarks ahead. One engineer attempted to break the pattern by stopping the vehicle completely for 10 minutes, allowing the engine to idle. When driving resumed, the next landmark appeared exactly where it would have appeared had the vehicle never stopped. Time paused. The loop continued. Perhaps the most disturbing discovery emerged during an overnight test. A vehicle remained on the highway for nearly 14 consecutive hours. As darkness fell, the sky transitioned normally into night. Stars emerged, temperatures dropped, but the surrounding terrain refused to change. The same reflective road markers glowed at the same intervals. The same distant silhouette of hills remained frozen against the horizon. Even the distribution of shadows beneath the headlights appeared eerily familiar. Only the sky acknowledged the passage of time. Everything else remained trapped. Attempts to physically mark the environment yielded inconsistent results. Chalk markings placed on guardrails sometimes reappeared, sometimes vanished entirely. Spray paint faded unnaturally fast in some locations, while other markings remained perfectly preserved when encountered again hours later. It was impossible to determine whether the environment was resetting or selectively reconstructing itself. Data analysts reviewing terabytes of footage noticed something even stranger. Tiny variations appeared between loops, microscopic differences in dust patterns, slight shifts in cloud positioning, barely detectable changes in lighting angle. Not enough to represent true progression, but enough to suggest that the loop was not perfectly static. It was evolving, slowly, almost imperceptibly, which raised an uncomfortable possibility. If the road could change, then it could also adapt. By the end of the testing phase, no participant had reached an endpoint, boundary, or terminal structure. Every test ended the same way: voluntary withdrawal due to fatigue, logistical limits, or psychological discomfort. The highway never forced anyone to stop. It simply never allowed them to finish. The experiments confirmed one conclusion with unsettling clarity. The phenomenon was not a malfunction of navigation systems, and not a collective hallucination. Something about the highway itself altered how space unfolded. Movement existed, distance accumulated, time progressed, but arrival had been quietly removed from the equation. And the deeper the researchers pushed forward, the clearer it became that this road was not merely a physical anomaly. It was behaving like a system designed to preserve motion while erasing destinations. Theories and speculation. Once the testing phase confirmed that the phenomenon was real, attention shifted from observation to interpretation. If the highway truly altered the relationship between movement and arrival, then the question was no longer whether something was happening, but what kind of mechanism could possibly allow it. The earliest theories remained grounded in physics and environmental science. Some researchers proposed that the highway passed through a rare geomagnetic corridor capable of interfering with spatial perception and satellite synchronization. Subtle distortions in Earth's magnetic field can influence navigation systems, animal migration, and even human neurological processing. If multiple overlapping anomalies existed along the same stretch of land, the combined effect could theoretically produce consistent navigational illusions. But this explanation struggled to account for one critical detail. The visual repetition was recorded objectively on camera and independently verified by live audiences. Magnetic interference might distort sensors, but it could not convincingly replicate identical physical landmarks across time. Others suggested a more technological cause. A massive mapping synchronization error between satellite systems could be feeding drivers false positional updates, while the vehicles unknowingly followed a circular route masked by algorithmic correction. In theory, automated map smoothing might conceal small deviations and gradually compress a loop into what appeared as a straight highway. However, aerial imaging showed no circular structure. Survey maps displayed no closed circuits. And independent analog compasses continued pointing consistently forward. If the vehicles were physically looping, the instruments should have detected deviation. They did not. The discussion slowly migrated away from conventional explanations. Cognitive scientists entered the conversation, proposing that prolonged exposure to monotonous environments could induce a form of perceptual compression, a blending of memory and expectation that causes the brain to overlay identical sensory inputs onto new stimuli. In this model, the highway was not repeating, the mind was filtering difference away. Yet this theory collapsed under one simple fact. Different individuals recognize the same repeating landmarks independently, even when viewing recorded footage at different times. The repetition existed outside any single observer's brain, which left an uncomfortable gap in explanation. Some physicists cautiously raised the possibility of localized space-time anomalies. In extreme theoretical models, space itself could fold or duplicate along certain topological boundaries, creating what appears to be forward motion while remaining confined within a limited spatial region. In essence, the road might occupy a curved pocket of geometry, disconnected from conventional linear distance. Such models exist only in abstract mathematics and cosmological speculation. There is no known natural mechanism capable of producing this effect on human-scale infrastructure, especially one that remains stable and accessible to civilian traffic. And yet the data refused to dismiss the idea. A smaller group explored information theory as a lens. If reality behaves like a computational system, then physical environments may operate on rules similar to rendering engines, loading only what is needed, repeating assets to conserve processing resources, and maintaining continuity through approximation rather than absolute precision. In that framework, the highway might represent a boundary condition where environmental rendering fails to generate new terrain beyond a certain threshold, forcing repetition while maintaining the illusion of forward progress. It was an unsettling analogy, one that blurred the line between physical reality and simulation. More speculative voices pushed the discussion even further. Some suggested the highway could function as a self-stabilizing loop, not accidental but emergent, created by overlapping human infrastructure, satellite systems, and environmental feedback cycles. A closed system where inputs continually reinforce outputs until escape becomes mathematically improbable. Others whispered about deliberate construction, that the highway may have been engineered, intentionally or unknowingly, as a containment corridor, a space designed to absorb movement, delay transport, or redirect flow without obvious physical barriers. A structure that controls behavior through subtle continuity rather than force. There was, of course, no evidence for such claims, only the absence of better explanations. Then a more disturbing philosophical interpretation emerged. What if the highway was not malfunctioning at all? What if it was behaving exactly as designed, not by human intention, but by systemic logic? Modern systems increasingly optimize for activity rather than completion. Algorithms reward engagement, not closure. Platforms prioritize continuous interaction, not resolution. Processes evolve to sustain momentum rather than deliver endpoints. In that context, the highway resembled a physical manifestation of a deeper pattern, a system that preserves motion while quietly erasing the concept of arrival, a loop that feeds on continuation, movement without destination, progress without completion, time consumed without outcome. The road did not trap drivers with walls or threats. It offered comfort, predictability, and smooth continuity. The drivers were never forced to stay, yet they continued moving forward because nothing signaled that stopping was necessary. The absence of an ending became invisible. Some psychologists warned that prolonged exposure to such environments could subtly reshape decision-making behavior. When arrival is indefinitely postponed, motivation shifts. Goals lose urgency. Individuals adapt to perpetual motion as a default state rather than a temporary condition. In this light, the calm reported by drivers was not a side effect. It was a feature, a quiet psychological alignment with endless process. The highway no longer appeared as a mystery of geography alone. It became a mirror, a reflection of systems humanity increasingly inhabits, where metrics indicate progress, dashboards show movement, and indicators remain green, even when meaningful advancement has quietly stalled. Every device says you are moving forward. Every system confirms activity. Every measurement validates continuation, but none of them guarantee arrival. And perhaps the most unsettling theory was not that the road was broken, haunted, or anomalous, but that it was simply honest. Honest about how easily motion can replace meaning. Honest about how systems can evolve beyond human intention. Honest about how progress can become a loop disguised as a journey. If that is true, then the highway is not an isolated phenomenon. It is a warning, a physical demonstration of what happens when momentum becomes more important than destination, when continuity becomes more valuable than completion. And if such a system can exist on a road, where else might it already exist? The driver who turned back. Until this point, every experiment followed the same unspoken rule. Forward was the only direction anyone ever tested. The road invited motion, encouraged continuation, and subtly discouraged interruption. Drivers accelerated, researchers measured, cameras recorded. No one questioned the assumption that the destination lay somewhere ahead, except one person. His name was never publicly released. Some records list him only as Driver K. He was not a scientist, nor an explorer. He was a freelance courier who had unknowingly spent nearly 6 hours on the repeating highway before realizing something was wrong. Unlike most drivers, he did not attempt to rationalize the loop or push deeper into it. He felt something else, a quiet pressure to continue, not fear, not panic, just an unnatural absence of doubt. That sensation disturbed him more than the repetition itself. According to his account, the calm felt artificial, as if the road was gently editing his emotional state, smoothing away hesitation and replacing it with passive momentum. The longer he drove, the less he cared about where he was going. That realization frightened him. So instead of continuing forward, he did the one thing no one else had seriously attempted. He turned around. At first, nothing happened. The road behind him looked identical to the road ahead. The same asphalt texture, the same faded lane markings, the same distant horizon dissolving into haze. Even his GPS hesitated, briefly recalculating as if unsure how to interpret the sudden reversal. But within seconds, something shifted. The air pressure inside the vehicle changed slightly, enough for his ears to pop. The engine tone subtly deepened, as if the acoustics of the environment had altered. The light itself seemed to tilt, not darker or brighter, but angled differently, like a camera lens being adjusted. Driver K described the sensation as falling sideways through reality. Then, after only 8 minutes of driving, he saw something no one had reported before. An exit ramp. A real one. Concrete barriers, reflective signage, a visible branching path leading away from the endless highway. The kind of ordinary infrastructure that suddenly felt surreal after hours of repetition. He exited immediately. The highway vanished behind him almost instantly as the road curved away. His GPS stabilized. The destination recalculated normally. Cellular signals strengthened. Time perception snapped back into clarity, as if a fog had lifted from his mind. When investigators later reviewed his dashcam footage, they noticed several anomalies. The sky lighting during the turn showed a brief distortion, a flicker in cloud positioning that did not align with natural atmospheric movement. Shadows rotated slightly out of sync with the vehicle's motion. For 3 frames, the horizon appeared duplicated, layered faintly over itself before stabilizing. The GPS log recorded a brief positional jump, a displacement too small to register as an error, yet inconsistent with continuous motion. It was as if the system had momentarily lost certainty about where the vehicle existed. More unsettling was the time discrepancy. According to Driver K's internal clock and vehicle system, the return journey took 8 minutes. According to his wearable device, it lasted almost 11. According to network timestamps from the live stream backup, it lasted just under 7. Time itself refused to agree on what had happened. Investigators attempted to replicate the maneuver. None succeeded. Several volunteers attempted to reverse direction at various points along the highway. Some reported intense hesitation and almost irrational resistance to turning around, as if the idea itself felt wrong, heavy, unnecessary. A few drivers described brief nausea, disorientation, or emotional discomfort when attempting to slow down or change direction sharply. One participant aborted the attempt entirely, unable to overcome a sudden wave of apathy that convinced him continuing forward was easier than resisting. Only Driver K completed the turn, which raised an even more troubling question. Why him? Psychological profiling offered no obvious explanation. He showed no unusual neurological traits, no abnormal stress tolerance, no history of impulsive risk-taking. If anything, he appeared unremarkably ordinary, except for one detail. During interviews, Driver K repeatedly emphasized that he had been thinking about quitting his courier work entirely before entering the highway that day. He was exhausted by repetitive routes, algorithmic scheduling, constant performance metrics, and endless delivery loops that never felt complete. He had already been questioning systems that demanded movement without meaning. Perhaps that mindset mattered. Perhaps resisting the road required more than physical action. It required conceptual refusal, the refusal to accept endless continuation as normal, the refusal to equate motion with purpose. Some researchers propose that the highway's loop may not operate purely on spatial mechanics, but partially on cognitive alignment. The calmer and more compliant the driver became, the more seamlessly the system maintained the loop. Resistance, genuine psychological divergence, may have introduced instability. If true, then the road was not simply trapping vehicles. It was interacting with intention. Driver K himself struggled to articulate what he felt during the turn. He described a brief moment of intense clarity, a sharp emotional spike, like waking suddenly from a vivid dream. For a fraction of a second, he felt fully present, fully aware, as if something inside him had rejected the environment outright. Then the exit appeared. He never returned to the highway. He refused all follow-up participation and eventually cut contact with investigators. His last message reportedly contained only one sentence: it didn't like being disobeyed. No further clarification was ever provided. The highway remains open to this day. Traffic continues normally. No official warnings exist. Navigation systems still guide drivers onto its smooth, endless stretch without hesitation. And yet one documented case proves that the loop can be broken, not by force, not by technology, not by measurement, but by refusal, by choosing to stop participating in forward motion, even when everything encourages you to continue, which leaves an unsettling implication. If a system can sustain itself by rewarding compliance and numbing resistance, then escape may require something far rarer than intelligence or equipment. It may require awareness, the awareness to question momentum, the courage to interrupt continuity, the willingness to turn back, even when the road insists that forward is the only direction that makes sense. Because perhaps the most dangerous systems are not the ones that trap you by force, but the ones that convince you that there is no reason to leave. What the road represents. After the experiments, the theories, and the one recorded escape, the highway no longer felt like a simple anomaly of geography or physics. It had become something else entirely, a symbol that demanded interpretation rather than measurement. The road was real, the footage existed, the data was documented, but its meaning extended beyond asphalt and coordinates. At its surface, the highway represented uninterrupted motion, a system optimized for continuity. Smooth pavement, predictable patterns, no obstacles, no interruptions, nothing that forces a decision or demands reflection. It offers comfort through consistency, inviting drivers to relax into the rhythm of movement and trust that progress is occurring simply because motion continues. In many ways, it mirrors the structure of modern systems. Digital platforms reward constant engagement. Algorithms prioritize activity over completion. Metrics track performance, growth, output, but rarely measure fulfillment, understanding, or closure. Dashboards glow green with indicators of motion while quietly ignoring the absence of meaningful arrival. We scroll endlessly. We refresh constantly. We chase updates, notifications, targets, and timelines. Everything moves. Nothing finishes. The highway becomes a physical metaphor for this condition, a space where movement itself becomes the objective, detached from destination. The drivers are not forced to participate. They enter willingly, trusting the instruments, trusting the system, trusting the promise that arrival lies somewhere ahead. And the system never lies outright. The GPS does update, the distance does accumulate, the engine does move forward. The deception is subtle. It lies not in false data, but in incomplete truth. The system tells you that you are moving, but it never guarantees that movement leads anywhere. Perhaps that is why the road does not feel hostile. It feels neutral, even calming. The emotional flattening reported by drivers resembles the quiet numbness of prolonged routine, where repetition becomes invisible and questioning feels unnecessary. When systems become familiar, resistance fades naturally. Comfort becomes containment. Over time, humans adapt to environments that demand less agency. Decisions become automated. Expectations shrink. Goals become abstract rather than concrete. The destination becomes a concept rather than a reality. The road trains its drivers not to ask when they will arrive, only whether they are still moving, and movement becomes enough. The one driver who escaped did not break the system with technology or force. He disrupted it by refusing the logic of endless continuation. He rejected the assumption that forward motion was inherently meaningful. That refusal mirrors something deeply human. The moment when individuals question systems that shape their behavior without their consent, routines that consume time, attention, and identity while offering only the illusion of progress. In that sense, the highway is not extraordinary. It is familiar. Many people live inside similar loops every day, commuting between obligations, refreshing digital spaces, chasing productivity metrics, following algorithmic suggestions, responding to endless demands that rarely deliver closure. The road exists not just in geography, but in schedules, screens, expectations, and habits. It exists wherever momentum replaces purpose. The highway also raises an unsettling question about agency. If systems can guide behavior gently, subtly, without force or visible coercion, how often do we mistake compliance for choice? How often do we confuse activity with intention? When the road removes arrival, it removes the need to decide when enough is enough. Without an endpoint, there is no natural moment to stop, reflect, or redirect. The journey becomes self-justifying simply because it continues. And that is perhaps the most dangerous illusion of all. Progress becomes a loop disguised as a line. The road also reflects humanity's growing reliance on external validation systems, GPS, algorithms, metrics, analytics, artificial intelligence, tools designed to optimize efficiency but not necessarily meaning. When individuals outsource judgment to systems, they risk surrendering awareness. The drivers trusted their instruments more than their perception. The instruments were not wrong. They were simply incomplete. Reality did not contradict the data. It exposed its limitations. There is also a deeper existential layer. The highway confronts us with a timeless human anxiety, the fear of spending life in motion without ever arriving at something that truly matters. The fear that routines accumulate time but not meaning, that effort becomes circular rather than transformative. The road does not threaten death or destruction. It threatens stagnation disguised as progress, a life spent moving but never arriving. Perhaps that is why the story unsettles so many people. It touches something intimate, the quiet suspicion that endless busyness may be easier than confronting direction, purpose, or change. Turning back requires courage. Stopping requires awareness. Choosing a different path requires uncertainty. The road offers the opposite: comfort, predictability, and the soothing illusion that everything is proceeding as it should. In the end, the highway may not represent a flaw in reality. It may represent a mirror held up to how humans increasingly structure their lives, systems that prioritize efficiency over meaning, continuity over reflection, momentum over intention. And the haunting question it leaves behind is not whether the highway has an end, but whether we recognize the roads we are already traveling. The unfinished journey. The highway is still there. Cars continue to enter it every day, engines humming, dashboards glowing, navigation systems confidently guiding drivers forward. From the outside, nothing appears unusual. No warning signs, no barricades, no visible boundary between the ordinary world and the endless stretch of road that quietly refuses to end. Most drivers will never notice anything strange. They will drive for a while, exit early, reach their destinations, and carry on with their routines. The loop only reveals itself to those who remain long enough, who surrender fully to forward motion without interruption, who allow continuity to replace curiosity. The highway does not announce its nature. It waits. Somewhere between familiarity and repetition, between comfort and surrender, the road begins to erase the idea of arrival. The destination remains visible on the screen, glowing patiently, yet never drawing closer. Movement continues. Time passes. The journey stretches forward endlessly, smooth and uninterrupted. And nothing ever tells you to stop. One driver proved that escape is possible, that the system can be disrupted, not through force or technology, but through awareness and refusal. He turned back when everything encouraged him to continue. He questioned momentum when the road offered comfort. He interrupted continuity when the system demanded obedience. But his escape does not resolve the mystery. It deepens it. If the road can respond to intention, if it can resist disobedience, if it can shape perception and emotion, then the highway is not simply an anomaly. It is a participant, a quiet presence that does not chase, threaten, or trap, but persuades. And persuasion is far more powerful than force. The highway invites a troubling reflection. How many systems in our lives function the same way? How many environments reward motion while silently removing meaning? How often do we trust indicators, metrics, and instructions more than our own awareness? We measure progress constantly. We track performance obsessively. We optimize speed, efficiency, and output. Yet rarely do we pause to ask what we are actually moving toward. The road does not punish those who keep driving. It rewards them with calm, predictability, and the comforting illusion of progress. The danger lies not in suffering, but in forgetting that alternatives exist at all. Perhaps the most unsettling possibility is that many travelers would never want to leave the highway, even if they could. Endless motion without difficult decisions can feel safer than uncertainty, change, or confronting the unknown. Arrival demands responsibility. Turning back demands courage. Staying requires nothing at all, and so the highway remains unfinished, not because it cannot end, but because few ever choose to challenge its direction. If you found yourself on that road, watching the numbers increase while the world stayed the same, would you notice? Would you question it? Or would you trust the system and continue forward, assuming the destination must eventually appear? Because the most dangerous journeys are not the ones that lead nowhere. They are the ones that convince you that nowhere is somewhere. Every GPS says you're moving forward. Reality says you're not. And somewhere on a quiet stretch of highway, the road continues, waiting patiently for the next traveler to believe it.
Shadows crawl where the light won't go. A silent wind, it starts to grow.